That was after they built the new building.
All right, so I guess our next piece of business then is to approve this contract.
As amended.
As amended. As amended. So I would ask for a motion to approve the contract as amended. And you have all those notes?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, so we had a motion in a second.
When we don't.
I move to approve
Okay.
the CCS contract for the pre-referendum services presented to the board on January 20th with amendments as noted.
Second. And a second. And this is a roll call vote.
Guess we'll start with Sharon.
Yes.
Pat?
Yeah.
Vicki?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
Crystal?
Yes.
Okay, that motion carries.
Thank you. We're
Well,
looking
thank you.
forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you. We're excited and nervous.
We're just excited.
That's good to hear.
Good. That's a vote of confidence for us. We appreciate
Thank you.
it. We do have some new business in our bylaws, standing committee and committee chairs. Page 33. It's kind of, you said you found it interesting to read through those, Pat.
Yes, I did. Well,
Both
many
bylaws
things
are
came to my attention, one of which is really also part of this luncheon today, because there were people who were talking about, their role in community relations, public relations, etc. And that organizations, nonprofits, such as that, certainly have community relations and public relations. We do not have such a committee, nor even where it would fall within a committee. And I guess I wanted to just speculate whether that might be something for us to consider as a need. I understand that we're talking about maybe, other bylaw changes, but I just throw that out for consideration, whether we want to stay with the committees we have. Or add something new.
And this is exactly what kind of prompted the whole thing, to review our standing committees and our committee structure. We do have a couple of committees that have been a lot less active now that we are in a different timeline and regularly occurring schedule as far as policy review is concerned. It may be time to cease a standing committee on policy. Those are the kinds of things, that and the automatic committee chair. One of the things that Sharon and I were discussing was the idea of allowing for more variety in among the trustees and who is actually chairing various committees as a way to develop future leadership for the board.
That was one of the things that we were talking about, so that it gives everybody a chance to have a leadership role in preparing to do other roles. Any reaction to that? Comments?
Well, what you were saying earlier about having PR or community relations, I mean, considering considering we had one failed referendum in the past, and we need a referendum to get to the next step, it would make sense that we would have people out in the community shaking hands, talking to people, kissing babies, as much as possible to prove that we have a need for this referendum.
And I think that's I think that's almost another part of what we're going to be doing with this referendum.
Right.
So maybe it wouldn't be a standing committee.
Okay.
A committee. That's a good thing to bring up, but I'm not sure that we need to establish a standing committee at this point, but it's something we certainly need to, maybe that would be the offshoot of that.
But maybe I see public relations differently. One of my frustrations, I was sitting next to the person from the enterprise today, and as we chatted, I said, you know, I've contacted the Tribune, the Trib Local, more than once, and I find that they have nothing from Plainfield, even though it's called Trib Local Bolingbrook Plainfield. And all the library programs listed in there are from Orland Park, Tinley Park, which isn't even supposedly where this Trib Local
Ours are submitted.
goes.
All of ours are submitted.
I have heard that.
Articles.
So I realized that. So I said, you know, perhaps we need, you know, something of that nature would go through the board committee to try to explore what do we do in order to get more of that kind of action. Not that, I don't think the board ought to be involved in writing the articles or
Right.
taking pictures,
Right.
so much as trying to generate, where is it? What gets provided, and what doesn't get used and why doesn't it? So, I guess that was my thought. Or even attendance at different events, we talked about
Well,
board
and we
members
do that.
attending, and we're doing that.
We do
Which
that.
is very good.
Yeah.
We
But I
had
don't
3
always know
board
all the
members
rules.
at today's Chamber of Commerce luncheon for the State of the Village address. That was very nice.
I actually kind of thought that, I seem to think we've been getting a little bit more press lately. I mean, who's ever working on
Yeah,
that
the
is
other
kudos to
day,
them,
that-
because
yeah, that was a
Because
great
I've
article.
We have a
been out
marketing
putting up the
assistant
patch
now.
on, out putting up the Herald, and, you know, I'm seeing an article, pull this out, think I
Yeah.
should bring it to the meeting.
Yeah.
And that is absolutely a function of finally having a marketing person on
Marketing
staff.
person, right.
Even though Sam is only part-time, when she first started with us, she worked on the backlog of more graphics kinds of things that we had. But in the last few months, she has really been able to focus on the marketing aspect of her job and to really begin to develop those contacts and make sure that she's getting things out to all those right places.
Yeah.
And I
I've
think
noticed an uptick in that.
Well, it's
Yeah.
been on Facebook and then
Yeah.
forwarded to yours.
And then the article that was in the paper, the day after, I'm thinking, whoa.
Yeah.
That was pretty amazing for us. And, so those kinds of things are maybe beginning to happen. I guess I would, my concern is that we don't stretch these people too thin, and I think we've got a big push coming, and that we all need to be involved in that in some way or another. And maybe then, after that, we can take a look and see, is this something we need to continue to do? Just,
Well, are we going to be doing that relatively soon in terms of forming and informing and attending, et cetera? Julie is just sitting there with this.
One of the things that I was going to bring up earlier and had kind of forgotten about, I had one more tidbit to share with you all. Our local park district is also considering referendum, possibly somewhere along the same timeline as ours. We are not sure what may happen there, but they are beginning a planning process, just like us, to figure out what they're gonna do. So
and that's.
we don't know, but also, our owner's representative and I had a long talk on Friday that included would they be willing to go to referendum in April of 2016 if we were ready? I think
Something
at
to
this
think about.
point, it's something that we cannot rule out. The normal kind of planning timeline for a referendum is usually somewhere in the 12-month range, and the date for deciding to put something on the ballot for an April election is in the 3rd week of January. This year it would have been yesterday. So
So
you're
it's a year from
exact,
today.
so it would be a
From
year
now.
from right now, so you are
So
exactly
we're in the mode, I mean, we're,
You are.
yeah.
So you're saying so that we're not on the same time as,
To leave
Not the presidential, but
leave
the-
your options open.
so the Park District, we're not, they're not.
And we don't know what they're doing for sure, this is just.
And they, like you, have until that same date in January of next year to decide if they want to put something on the ballot in April, and then have until that date in August to put something on the ballot in November. So it's generally about 3 months in advance.
There was a thought process that in November it's going to be the presidential election. You're probably going to get a higher turnout than in April. And the thought being is that if the turnout's smaller, you've got a better chance of success. But that's just an initial thought.
As long as it isn't 11%.
It's
That's
just,
too small.
it was just an idea.
Sure,
So, and it's not,
and I think we have to keep all of those ideas
Yes.
open at this point, and that's what we need to be hearing these things and making good decisions on with good information.
And getting the feedback from the community on what they want to see.
it's huge.
Well, maybe getting back to the issue that you brought up, and that you talked about policy. Having worked with the Personnel Policy Committee, which now is one committee, I concur that I don't see we have a reason to have any committee function left in terms of policy, since the whole board will certainly discuss policy as needed.
Well, and that usually comes from the staff committee
Right,
to us.
right.
So it's not as if we're creating this, unless we really think it needs to be created, that we have that option. But usually the staff is the one that knows really what the day-to-day.
Right. Of course, we have had an easier time with the Personnel Committee because of Julie's multiple-year contract, and with our primary function being to evaluate and work with that element of Julie being our employee. That has made Personnel Committee's job easy. Now, if at some point, we don't want to change the bylaws necessarily, just in case, certainly, the personnel, becomes. But it would maybe be the one committee I would question whether it should just be open, only because
What do you mean by open?
in terms of,
Just as needed.
so, Jason is brand new on the board,
Uh-huh.
has not much experience now. Certainly, I would think he could chair a committee, but I think that somehow, when we're talking about evaluation procedures and the kind of process that we have set up, it might be difficult for someone who isn't experienced.
Oh, well, I think
Doesn't
we
have to
would
be an officer.
I think we are wiser than that. I would hope.
I would hope.
That we wouldn't expect that of someone brand new.
No, but I say, we're talking about just the policies that we're putting into the bylaws, rather than it being any criticism of the people who sit on the board or our proclivity to do something that would be foolish. It's more in terms of what public bylaws, how should they represent.
Well, I think I would like to make a suggestion. I think I would like for each person on the board to really read through these thoroughly, take a very good look at what we think might need to be changed, or added, or deleted, and bring that back to the next meeting. I think it's something that we need to
Think about it.
think about, look into with some thought that we have that responsibility to make this the best functioning set of bylaws that makes this board function well. So, and keeping in mind that we will be doing more of that outreach just by the nature of a referendum too. So, and that's something we've already discussed with a couple different people. And I'll have them meet with Andrews next week, then we'll have a better idea too of where we're going with things. So is that agreeable to everyone that we, the motion to table this? Or a motion? You need a motion first?
I can motion it then.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, fine.
Motion to table
A motion
bylaws.
and a second on that? Okay, so we, everyone in agreement is aye? Those opposing or those abstaining? So that motion carries. So let's take a real good look at this. Let's think about where we want this to go, what we think are important. And Jason, if you need to sit and talk about this a little bit, I'm always available to go over things and we can, so feel free for that. Is that,
And bear in mind that if we are looking at making any changes to the bylaws, those do have to be in writing and distributed to all of the trustees 10 days in advance of the meeting at which they would be voted on. So just so you know.
so if you really want something done, you can prepare that. If you just want to come back to discuss, that's okay too. So we can go either way with that. Okay? Everybody in agreement with that? Okay. All right. Do we have any reason to go to executive session? Does this mean that we're going to be able to adjourn?
I like that.
Anything else that, Vicki, Pat? Crystal?
I
Jason?
wanted to ask just a general question about this, so maybe in the afternoon. National Library Legislative Day, I know nothing about it other than what I read in here. And is it something that you believe any of us should be involved in considering?
It's nothing that our board has done in my 14-year tenure. Some library boards are very involved on the national level. Our board has really focused more on the state level and attending things like the legislative breakfast that will occur in February. Back when we had the legislative day in Springfield, now we have these legislative meetups, the breakfast, et cetera. Yes, it's good to advocate for libraries on the national level. We have not chosen to put our dollars in that direction in my tenure, at least. And as we currently have the moratorium on out-of-state travel for staff, it may not be the best time to look at doing out-of-state travel for the board.
Well, I don't think I asked the question with any kind of monetary piece to be included. The only other thing I wondered about, would we consider at some point inviting Mr. Gatnick, who is our new representative, maybe in February, when we're doing legislative things, et cetera, perhaps invite him just to a meeting, or, I mean, I think that, we had such a long-term relationship with Tom Cross when he was our representative, and he certainly was very kind in terms of listening to what our needs and concerns were that he could represent. And I just thought maybe it would be helpful if we kind of would take a step in a good direction with it.
They're always welcome, so that.
I understand, but I thought it was just an
Yeah,
invitation
sure.
to.
That's, sure, that's fine. And the trustee forum workshop is on Valentine's Day this year?
And
Yeah,
actually,
that's desserts.
the food is always good at this event. That's how they get the trustees there.
Just know that we're going already.
And they do have,
Put me down.
yeah. And the legislative meetup for our area is actually the day before that. It is Friday, the 13th of February, and that one is in Tinley Park, that breakfast. Actually, we'll let you steal Samantha's packet, and then we'll print out a new one for her.
So,
Just steal it, it's yours now.
I think it's, you find out some things that you didn't know were going to be happening, or things that have happened, and we also get some legislative consultant things, and
Yes,
Those
it's
are
always very, very interesting. The lobbyist for the Illinois Library Association, who is a very, very knowledgeable individual about our state legislature and the way what's working its way through, what's likely to happen. He's always got really interesting things to tell us. We also have a library attorney who is very popular, who does Q&A and some interesting, an interesting talk every year.
Never know what you're gonna
It's
get.
never a dull time,
Yeah.
so, very interesting, very informative, and I know that our trustees have always enjoyed that as one of their main focuses for their trustee development every year.
We can carpool.
And we can
Okay.
carpool.
Yeah, so, that'll be good. If there is, back to. What did you hear or learn or have some idea of what we're doing, or do you have questions about what is going on this library board?
Well, I have a question. What is, it starts with an R, it's like reprimand or?
Referendum.
Yeah, what is that?
That is actually when the library puts a tax question on the ballot for the voters in our library district. The library is currently just beginning a planning process to develop what that question might be. Our library it's a 1980s design library doing 21st century library service. It's got some major constraints, not the least of which being it's designed to have a maximum service capacity for a population of about 35,000. We currently have 75,000 people in our library district. It's one of the reasons that we have so many constraints with this building and just cannot meet the needs of the community. So that's why we're starting the planning process.
And that's a wonderful question. Thank you for asking.
Thank you.
Anything that you heard or you're wondering about? Nothing that comes to your mind? Okay. Now, do you have to write a report or do you have to fill out?
Yeah, we write a one-page paper about what happened at this meeting.
Okay, very good. I'm glad you're here.
Thank you.
We like to have people learning. I will ask for adjournment. Motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Is there a second? Moved in second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
That's your only choice.
Done.